Alright, here we go. Welcome back to Super Sentai Review, episode number 565. We are here reviewing episodes 18 to 20 of Kiramager. Now, basically with these 3 episodes, I have finished these up. I have only 10 more to go, plus 2 movies. And then officially I'm on break from Kiramager. Yep. So in these 3 episodes, we gotta go a little more in detail of what exactly Tomuchi basically mentioned about the whole darkness thing. So apparently, the King Crystalia fought a witch from the Yana Empire who cursed him, but it went to his wife, and somehow the wife just died, turned basically to ash, and it's slowly being passed to his adoptive sister. And he wanted to use the gems to find 4 gems to basically cure her. And there's sort of a follow effect from the previous episode where he becomes dark. Kira Silver. And, of course, also, Jotaro uses the gem he was going to save to basically cure his sister to cure him. And he points out, though, yeah, it can be reused. No problem. Just give him time, it will basically wear off. He was not very happy with the fact that this had to happen. And where did he get this info from? The king himself. Because it's been kind of hinted the whole series that he's had sort of a mental connection to the king of Crystalia. Of course, he's not really returned yet, but I do appreciate that episode. What it was, yeah, it's definitely a canon episode. It does expand upon some stuff. The whole dark Kira Silver thing, that's only for 1 episode. And then he's basically back normal. In episode 19, it's the episode where this feels like a filler. Oh, let's have an episode. We have the 5 machines swap bodies with the Rangers for an episode. Yep, let's do this for an episode. This is okay. It was interesting what it was. Not much to say about this episode. It just feels like a filler episode. 20 I thought was quite interesting because 20 brings back a character who has not been seen since the episode 0 short film. Kazu, I think her name is. She's a classmate of Jotaro. Now, where the heck has she been the whole time? Never explained. By the way, this is the same room they were actually in back in episode 1. Because this is the actual classes. Like, where the heck she has been is never explained. So if I read, she was supposed to be, she actually cast to be one of the Rangers, but instead she's brought back in this recurring role. Because after this 1 episode, she does not appear in episode 42, which just features the return of another character, which we'll get to when we eventually get to the episode. Yeah, and it's like, she forces the Jotaro by his last name. Of course, basically, that weird drawing he drew in the episode 0 movie. And the whole thing of this one is the monster sticks people together. And she becomes... And this is by weird coincidence. You would have thought, though, that somebody outside of basically the owner of Cart and the Princess would know who the heck the 5 Kiramagers are. Now, you're probably thinking, isn't anybody connected to anybody, like, of the other Rangers? Do anybody connect to these people? Do they basically find out that they're Kiramager? At this point, no. Because here's something really weird, though. In the case of our resident doctor, she's had no supporting characters. Like, nobody for her to interact with aside from basically, like, some unnamed character. Senna, for example, at this point, there's been nobody for her to interact with at all. Well, she did interact with some people back in episode, like, I think it was back in episode 0, but nobody noteworthy. Our resident gamer actually had a character. There was a character to interact with for 1 episode. Did he find out it was a Kiramager? No, it was in the Garholics episode where he had to retire because he around Neil Shop. It was like one single episode. But he never found out he was a Kiramager. Our Blue Ranger, well, as far as I can tell, I think there was a girl who had a crush on him, but it didn't go anywhere at all. Because, for some weird reason, she decided to stop stalking him and start falling for the Doctor. Which, that ended up going nowhere. Yeah, it went nowhere because she was dropped from the show. Did she find out she was a Kiramager? Nope. Never did. Tush Munchie did have a character to interact with. Yes, a high school crush. Which, he will see her again. Yeah, so Ever gets stuck on something. Now, the Kiramagers don't get stuck on anything except for Red. And he ends up holding Kira's hand. Yes. And these two become stuck together the entire episode. She is not let go until the end of the episode. Which begs the question, what if he had to use the bathroom? Well, looking up basically, the episode goes by really quickly, so I don't have to worry about that. So, they tend to go back to class. Then we pose as our brother, as her wife holding hands. Is quite weird. Though, before I get to that, so basically what happens here is this. She finds out who all the Kiramagers are, and she recognizes the gamer, something who Joe didn't recognize when he first met him. And then, of course, she basically just accidentally spills the beans that the Red Ranger is her classmate. And she's like, talking rocks? A rock girl? Well, technically, the princess is a rock girl. And she's, oh, don't worry, I'll keep this a secret. She probably will. And then, of course, basically, over the course of the episode, these two actually connect to each other. Not because of the sticky hand thing, but on sort of an emotional level. I thought this was really cool, the fact they did this with one character. You probably would think, like, this character was essentially put a one-shot character that just brought back for this episode. But there was a lot of follow-up with the movie. There was a lot of follow-up. I would say these interaction. Now, for some reason, she does anything to the president of CART. Now, how she are. Like, the first one she does is Doctor, obviously, which that was also the same thing with Jotaro as well. And then it was said that Christopher is cute, which she was very happy to hear that. Of course, the video game which he immediately recognized. Of course, the actors. He does mention basically that she did see advanced screening of his recent movie. It's like, good. Can you make sure you keep this on social media? Which, I get the fact basically nowadays you would say that. But this was released like back in like the early 2000s. You don't worry about social media at all. You wouldn't freaking give a damn about that because it didn't exist back then. But it's commonplace nowadays. Him saying that makes perfect sense because he's an actor. He probably is under an NDA for certain stuff. And the actor is. Non-disclosure agreement. That's what basically NDA stands for. But I found the episode 20 kind of fun. There's even one point like, okay, so then we have the Kiramager get stuck to various stuff. Where, get this, said they get stuck to a dresser, so he gets stuck in a refrigerator. Which I'm like, is this the episode poking fun at the women in refrigerators trope that Gail Simone started back in the 1990s? I think that was just by sheer coincidence. And Tsunade gets stuck to a freaking mannequin that the monster pulled out of nowhere. You're like, what the heck is this? It's really weird. And then, of course, here's the thing. Only Touch Mancha and get this. So, only him and a Yellow Ranger, the only ones not getting the glue. So, the plan was basically have... Then, of course, that Juzuka was an interesting plan. He and Kucha will distract the monster long enough for those two to get all of the objects that these spatter the glue over, form a weapon, And eventually they do destroy. At one point, he even stuck one of the grunts to him. Eventually, the monster's destroyed. And then, of course, basically, this is really weird. It's like, yeah, everybody's been cured, but for some reason their hands stuck together. I think the case of Sakura, she still wants to hold his hand. So then she goes into the mech with him. Yes. I am not kidding about that. She goes into the frickin' Zord with him. And they form the Megazord. They destroy the monster. Then, of course, basically, she draws him where it's like, he's not that dazzling. And she's like, yes, he is. Implying the fact that she might be attracted to him. That's why I see it. Yes. Okay, so interesting thing with this one. So basically the whole thing of bringing in a civilian inside of a mech at this point in time, well, someone who's not associated with the team itself, excuse me. Okay, so to answer the obvious question, has this ever happened before where we have somebody who is not part of the team but is associated with one of the Rangers get a chance to ride inside the Megazord? Well, to my knowledge, at this point in time, you probably think like, oh, did it happen during the Showa era? Well, no. Never did. Not any of them. You think, okay, what about Heisei? Was any one of them basically where you had somebody not associated with? I think, no. I was thinking maybe Outrage, but no, Outrage never happened with that one. So you probably think like, has this happened before? Well, yes, it happened with King Ultra later, but here's the thing. That was 3 years after this. This, of course, started. This I think was the first time this ever happened that I could think of, where someone who's not a Sentai member. Well, actually, scratch it. There actually has been one other time this has happened, kind of, and this did happen with Ryu Soldier, the previous show, where you have the younger sister, one of the characters, operating one of the mechs, but not part of the Megazord. That's the difference. The mech did not become Megazord in the episode. That was basically all separate. Yeah. Also, they kind of forced the whole idea of like, oh, let's have the Six Ranger Zord and the Megazord kind of fuse a bit. And would this be something basically they would do? I know this is common with any Sentai show where yeah, where I forgot what I was talking about. I lost my train of thought there. Yeah. No, seriously, I lost my train. Okay, so I think this is the witch. Yeah. It was the witch. Yeah, this witch. She will apparently show up again. So she'll probably show up soon, but yeah. Yeah. But I would say of these 3 episodes, I'd say I enjoyed 20. I thought 20 was a fun episode. 18 I thought was really good. I'd say probably the weakest episode is probably 19. Yeah. But we're gonna get something more here. Okay, so, oh yeah, now I remember. It was the fusing of the two Zords. So, if you're curious though, has there been like, um, what I could also tell anyways, they only have one mech. They have one side mech, yes, but let me tell you here about the mecha itself for the second range. Did it ever merge with the main one? I'm looking right now. Well, they kind of had this in episode 20, but in the next one, no. It never did. Which I find that interesting. I'm looking at basically if there was ever a point in the show where you have with the Six Ranger Zord merge with the new one? Not really, no. Yeah, but at least basically this mech is active throughout the whole series. From what I can tell anyways, looks like he misses like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Huh. Only 7 episodes. For somebody debuted in episode 13. He only misses 7 episodes. That's not bad. It is kind of weird though that this mech is the first one. Not to merge the mech. I think the reason, and this is also there's also kind of something continual from Ryu Soldier, where instead of occupying the same cockpit, it's separate cockpits. I saw this here, and I'm like, wait, I've seen this before. Gangaman. But you're probably thinking, Ryu Soldier did have one point where they did share cockpit. They did. But in the case of that one, it's kind of like they're all in the same room, but they're all separate but near each other. This one, it's separate cockpits. I'm never really a big fan of that. To me, it doesn't look good. But here's the weird thing about this. So, in the ones that I don't know about Dawn Brothers and Zenkaiger. I don't know about those two yet because I haven't fully watched yet. What case Zenkaiger I haven't seen it, but Dawn Brothers I haven't seen it, but and the ones that seen after this, Kiramager never had a scene where you have the characters share the same cockpit. Never did. Boomerang definitely did. Yes, Boomerang definitely did do this. Where you have the characters share the same cockpit. I always love seeing that. It shows basically unity of the team. Yeah, so Gozu did do this for one episode, where they kind of had all the Rangers in one mech for like one episode. Now, it doesn't happen a lot per se. It seemed like it happened to start for like the first couple, and then they just stopped doing that for several. And one thing it's always like though, is we had the mechs like when they merge and they all kind of merge to one single cockpit that just magically comes out of nowhere. I was like seeing that. Well, I remember, I think it started with Flashman, and it didn't happen Game Man. That was the first one that did not happen because basically all separate cockpits. Well, it did not happen Die Ranger. Actually, it did happen Die Ranger, yes. So Die Ranger, it did happen with that one. It didn't happen Cocker Ranger. Cocker Ranger never had a combined cockpit. Never did. It was separate rooms. That one along with Gangaman. Those are the only two I can think of in the Heisei era that did do that. But most of everything else did. You're thinking, well, what about Hurricane Ranger? That one did. At first, yes, but once eventually get all the members, they did have the ability to all share the same cockpit. But later on, it was there to fix it. But most of from that point forward, they did generally have people share the same cockpit. I would say probably the next time this happened would be to Go Busters. Yes. And you would think, like, was there anything after Go Busters when this happened where you actually had characters that didn't share the same cockpit? Well, this would not actually happen again until, I would say, Ryu Soldier. Yeah, Ryu Soldier's the next one. And we have this one. So, since basically we started the whole thing for the trend of share the same cockpit with their Flashman, only like a few of them basically have this concept, but this one, yeah. But not much else to say about these 3 episodes. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, to notifications. Let's go ahead and do a comic corner, and then basically it's I'm looking at the time. I may not get time to watch more episodes. I'm glad I got these 3 episodes done. Let's work on this comic corner next, okay? Let's go. Bye.